What's going on, guys? Zeus here, and today I'm gonna be answering a question or talking about a topic I said I was gonna talk about, and that is the topic of racial mixing. How do I feel about people of different races mixing their semen and eggs together and creating a totally different hybrid creature? Well, I think I'll start this video off by saying how I used to feel about racial mixing, and in the video with how I feel about racial mixing now. So, start off with how I used to feel about racial mixing was I used to just, from my point of view, just kind of be just some shit people fucking did. It just kind of was a normal part of my life. Obviously, for me, me personally, look at me. So ever since I was a kid, I've always been just some light-skinned black guy. So, I mean, no, my parents aren't mixed, or at least they don't claim to be mixed. But they're obviously, we are not fully African people. Just fucking look at me, you know. Uh, so even if you look at my last name, my real last name, not the character I portray, but Zarius Larry Dorch. Dorch obviously is a German name, so somewhere along the line, I was genetically mixed with some European person, whatever. So for me, I mean, I've never claimed to be a mixed person. I mean, it's obvious that genetically I am. I just never claimed it. I'm just some nigga on the internet. So it's always just kind of been some natural part of my existence. One thing that I've always found to be pretty interesting though is even like people in my family are pretty torn between being dark skinned black people and light skinned black people, which I think is actually pretty interesting. Because my grandma on my mom's side is beige. Like I mean, my grandma and my auntie actually on my mom's side are both like beige, like lighter than I am, like just light skinned black people. And I don't really know how that came to be. I've always thought it was pretty interesting. Well, I only recently thought it was interesting, like a couple of years ago. But when I was a kid, I just accepted it. It was just it was just a thing. So just throughout my life, I've had friends who were mixed. One of my best friends in high school, he was Filipino and white European guy. He was a cool guy. Uh, I had another friend who was Taiwanese and white. This mixed guy, another Asian hybrid. Another friend of mine who was mixed. He's just straight black and white. My ex girlfriend, on the other hand, was her mom was mixed and her dad was white, so she would mostly lean on the whole European white side, but she looked like she could have been like Cuban or something. No, I'm joking. I used to make fun of her and say that she looked like she was a Mexican, but she wouldn't appreciate that shit at all. So let's just keep that between us, viewer. All right. But seriously, like my ex girlfriend, she was mixed. Let me think. There are probably some other people there are lots of other people I've met who've been mixed. Who've just been kind of swell people in life. There's this one girl I used to know named Christina. I sat next to her in chemistry class. She was a cute girl. She's very beautiful, tall, mixed lady. She was awesome, and that was just that. So I just, from growing up, from my point of view, growing up, just like existing in life, obviously me being a product genetically mixed down the line, I don't know how much, I don't know what the percentage is, but fucking look at me. And just growing up around mixed people, or just growing up around, and not all of my friends were mixed, mind you, but growing up around them, they just always kind of seemed like people to me. Just it just always was a thing to me. So that's how I felt about racial mixing then. So how do I feel about it now? Well, honestly, viewer, I have to say, my feelings haven't really changed all that much. No, I'm being serious. What has changed though is I have thought about the topic a lot more, and I have considered the idea of not racially mixing a couple of times in my life. I mean, like probably like a year ago. But for the most part, in my lifetime, it's never really been a barrier for me, especially when trying to date women. The only thing that's ever really been a barrier to me when I try to date women is the fact that like I try to become friends with them and like I actually care about them as people, and you can't do that shit. No, I'm messing around. Actually, I'm not messing around. That's true. But more on topic. So no, like I've tried to date white women. I've tried to date black women. I have never tried to date a Japanese woman before, but that's because I've never been around a Japanese woman. But if I was, I probably would try. Probably. Strong chance that would happen. Tried to date this one girl who's mixed. She's half white. Technically speaking, Mexican isn't a race, but she's half Mexican. That's half Spanish speaking somewhere. You'll put it like that. Yeah, and I've tried to date white women. I already said that. I'm just trying to go back to my catalog of women I've tried to date. So racially mixing has never been any barrier to me. But this is when I was younger, when I was like a teenager. As an adult, however, I never really thought about the topic until a really good friend of mine named Davis Arini really brought it up. And he didn't bring it up in the sense that you should never do it, but he brought it up as something to ponder. And one thing I never considered, I never thought about, was the identity crisis that some mixed people can deal with. And then I went online and I looked up. There's this one Franny video, Francesca Ramsey video, where I'll probably chat about maybe in the future, where a couple of mixed people, she asked to give their opinion. And they talked about the discrepancy they feel in life and being torn between, being whatever they're mixed with. It's not a black and white thing like black and white people think in America, but, there's even this one chick who's like Japanese and white, and, she still felt torn. So I actually do think it is an interesting thing to ponder and wonder about, the racial identity of some of these people, how some of these people will feel and deal with, of what group they kind of associate with, because despite the fact that I am light skinned, that's never really been a problem that I've had, because again, my parents, are still, mostly dark skinned people. I mean, they don't look like they're from Zimbabwe, but, they're darker than me at least. I've never really had an identity crisis. I've always just been, some nigga. I've just always been a black guy. But even then, even thinking about that topic though, about the issues that some mixed race people might deal with being torn between what they are, I personally have thought that that's only kind of one element of a struggle in life that would exist anyway. And what I mean by that is I mean that the specific point of they won't feel torn between, their races if their parents never racially mixed might be gone. I would say the same way the danger of getting into a car accident is if you don't drive a car. However, still feeling like an outcast is not something that would go away, assuming that you were still born a black person. Because you could be a black person and still be in the kung fu and anime and not be able to identify with, the hood niggas who like, trap music and smoking weed. So even being the same race doesn't guarantee any sort of real connection between your brother and who share the same skin color, So, and I felt that personally, growing up. I've had black friends, obviously, but the thing that connected us more wasn't just, so much we were black people, but again, because we enjoyed, Star Wars, we enjoyed, different cartoon shows, we enjoyed the same jokes, same sense of humor. It was really that connected us together, not, our skin color, so, excuse me. So, yeah, I understand a lot of people who are against racial mixing do think that there will be an identity crisis with mixed people. And this is consistent with some mixed people I've seen. But what's also interesting with some other mixed race people is they don't even fucking think about the shit. Again, to them as well, it's just always been their life. And so it never bothers them. So I obviously I can't say it's 50-50, but, surveying the actual mixed race people I've been friends with and I've known for years, and the people I've seen on the internet, I'm not saying one weighs more than the other because they're both anecdotes. What I am saying is that they are different people in the same situation, and they feel differently about it. They accept it differently. So I guess really when it comes down to it, I personally cannot find much of a problem with it on a genetic level as far as species of humans go. We're not different species as far as I understand it. Even if we're different races, I mean, we can still reproduce with each other. So I haven't seen very many genetic issues that occur between mixed race people from my very limited research. I did look this up a little bit, I mean, like for all 5 minutes. So there might be a bunch of different genetic diseases that come from becoming mixed race, but it's not like you end up missing a chromosome like a mule would. Like a horse and a donkey can reproduce, right? And they can create a mule, and that thing just becomes infertile. It can't reproduce anymore. Humans aren't like that. And the thing that's interesting about humans is humans who grew up on two different sides of the fucking planet can still come together and reproduce. I mean, that distance means nothing in terms of our genetic encoding because we're still humans. Like I could still reproduce with a woman in Australia or a woman from China. Again, separated by entire oceans, but we're still humans. And I think, and it's interesting though, because the other day I was watching an old clip from Muhammad Ali talk about racial mixing, and it was funny because he made a point, and he was like, you don't see, birds playing with other birds, sparrows with sparrows, a hawk or eagles with eagle. You don't see a buzzard being with a hawk. And I was like, yeah, but I mean, yeah, I guess to take it literally, a buzzard obviously only mates with, I mean, a buzzard's still with the buzzard. Even if one buzzard is albino and white, it's still a buzzard, right? Even if I actually don't know if a hawk and a eagle can reproduce together. That would be interesting to look up. But I mean, again, one reason why birds don't reproduce together is because they grew up in different environments and they're two different birds. But humans, again, even if humans growing up in two different environments, even different shades of melanin and bone structure, even with different levels of testosterone, even with all of that, we still mate with each other and just and be we still be like the same thing with a dog. Like I guess it does kind of suck that you compare humans to dogs, but seriously, like there are some dogs that prefer to be with other dogs. Like a Chihuahua would normally prefer to be around other Chihuahuas, and they do get along with each other a little better. However, most dogs, medium-sized dogs, are fine with each other, provided their temperament isn't, complete fucking asshole. You know what an asshole dog is, right? One that's just mean for no reason. Most big dogs, they're just not just straight reproduce with each other, but play around with each other, hang out with each other, and they'll be mutts. Purebred dogs, they're all the same thing. Like to a dog, and the interesting thing still about a dog is the fact is technically a dog is a wolf, right? It's a wolf that more or less stays a puppy is the best way to describe it. A dog in actuality, but I mean like a dog, like a domesticated dog, can still reproduce with a wolf. So genetically, they're still not that far apart. Obviously, in terms of instincts and temperament, it'd be a different creature, the hybrid. But it could still be done because genetically, a dog is still a wolf. And the same thing with humans. So I can't find any real genetic issues between racially mixing. As far as social goes, the thing that, again, the only barrier I see is people talking about, when some people talk about racial mixing, is they don't like the identity crisis their child might go through. And it's interesting because it's not their child, they just mean in general. But they don't like that. But I still feel that eventually, no matter what, you're still going to have to deal with the struggles of trying to become a human being or trying to connect with other human beings, regardless of race. It seems, at least in my personal experience, the connecting with other people has not really been a racial thing for me, but more has been an identity kind of thing with me. Well, of course, racial doesn't go with identity, but I mean more like the things we enjoy doing, the people we enjoy hanging around, the things we like doing or reading, if they even like reading, I guess the last thing I have to say is this, man. It's gonna sound really shitty, because it kind of is, and I'm really sorry for it. But honestly, in our current social, political climate, I mean, finding a good woman to be with now is difficult enough on its own. I think I don't really think a lot of men who want to be married or at least want to find women to be with really have the luxury of only sticking. Well, I mean, if you're a white person in America, you certainly do, because there's plenty of fucking white women. But I mean, but I think other men, I think honestly, even then, I don't really feel very comfortable with ever saying to a woman or telling a woman that I perceive to be great, like fantastic, like mother material, fantastic lady all around. I don't mean like sex, like physically try. I mean like virtuously a really righteous woman. I don't feel comfortable with telling that woman that I can't be with you or I don't want to be with you because I don't know what, you're Chinese or you're Irish. Well, I mean, whatever. It just doesn't feel right to me to reject a woman that great and let her be with some other man. Fuck that shit. If a great woman came to me, I mean, again, she be from Vietnam, whatever, she can be Canadian. I don't know. I don't care. If a great person came to me, I don't feel comfortable. I think that I would miss out on a really good relationship with someone if I only cared so much about creating someone of the same racial progeny as me. And even then, I'm already mixed as it is. I mean, I obviously again wouldn't call myself biracial and mixed person, but I'm fucked. It's over. It's over. I'd have to go back to Africa and just find a straight African woman and reproduce with her in hopes of trying to get that whole African thing back on track. and even then our child would still be mixed with whatever is in there. So it wouldn't be for me. Here's the thing, like bringing forth a child who's the same race as me. I personally don't have a huge connection with my race, and people of my race have never had a huge connection with me. Same thing with white people. White and black people. I mean, I've never really been on the best terms with just, racial groups of people. Some people probably would think that because I'm not shitty towards white people that I like them in some particular way. I mean, not really, as far as I just like people in general. Being white, doesn't add or subtract. And I think that's the way it should be. Same thing with black people. I mean, it doesn't add or subtract. So honestly, again, I can't have a great woman in my life, or have the opportunity to be with a great woman and reject her based off of her race, or based off the fact that I want racial homogeny, which is something I don't even have myself. So I mean, I can't. It's really strange to demand it from someone else. I just kind of feel like it's out of my hands at this point, and it doesn't really matter to me. However, that said, I mean, is it wrong? Is it right? Is it okay? Is it a good thing to do? Well, honestly, I think if you're going into it with the understanding that it's not the race that you're dating, that you're actually with the person because you like them, above and beyond. To make sure you're not mud sharking, now I personally can't find much of a problem with it. A lot of people will say that if you breed with someone outside of your race, you're probably losing your culture. I think that's bullshit. I'll tell you why. Because your culture is something that you give to someone through knowledge and teaching them. It's not something you breed into them. So you can't just simply have sex with someone and they just automatically fucking know everything there is about Western culture. You teach a child Western culture. You teach a child different things. So it doesn't really matter what race the person is. If you're a white person and you don't want to lose your European culture, then you know what you have to do? You have to teach people that. You have to teach your children that. That's the important thing. It's not enough to, even the white nationalists, it's not enough to just have white children. You have to teach them the culture itself. And you can depart a culture to anyone of any race. I mean, provided that's the first thing that they come into. Again, you take someone who's mixed between black and white and you put them in Mexico, they're going to adopt to the Mexican culture there. That's just what's going to happen. Of course, there are differences between the races, which probably I could get into maybe in the future or something. However, as far as do I find any real problem with it, I personally cannot. It's always been a part of my life. I mean, it is my literal, genetic encoding. And I care more about people as individuals than I care about races anyway. So my final verdict is, if you're with someone, I mean, genuinely, I think race should be of no consequence, which means you shouldn't date someone because they're Cuban, but at the same time, you shouldn't reject someone for being Cuban because you only want to be with other white people. That said, here's the thing. Listen, are you listening? You can do whatever the fuck you want to do, okay? You can. I don't want anyone to interpret this as me saying, hey, date dark, and I'm not saying that. Hey, you should date white people. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that you should date someone who's kind and honorable, who supposedly, hopefully, would want children or doesn't want children, that those goals line up. You should date someone because you like them for who they are, not for what race they are. And that includes mud sharking. Don't date people because they're of a race, but I still don't think you should reject them either. So hopefully that was coherent enough for you people. And hopefully that answers your questions on how I feel about racial mixing. It's just always been a part of me. So, yeah. So that being said, man, I sure hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And if you did, man, go ahead and click that like button. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.